right now, somewhere in your mind, there's a loop running. Okay? Something you keep coming back to, a situation, a relationship, a thing that might happen or might not happen. And it doesn't matter how many times you think about it, nothing changes. You're still worried. So if you've been trying to figure out how to stop worrying, especially about things you can't control, this is specifically for you, because I'm going to show you why your brain does that and why willpower alone never fixes it. And I'm going to give you a simple framework that actually works, not theory, but real tools. Stay with me, because I want to share something I learned from the Dalai Lama in person that genuinely changed how I live, and it's probably not what you'd expect. I want to start with something that just might sound a little bit confronting. Worrying about something doesn't make you more prepared for it, and it doesn't mean that you care more about it. I know we tell ourselves it does. We think if we just think about the bad thing enough times, we'll somehow be ready for it. Or we feel like if we stop worrying, we're being naive, like we're letting our guard down. But here's what is actually happening inside your brain when you worry. So your brain has a very ancient piece of hardware called the amygdala. You've heard me talk about it. Its whole job is to scan for threats and to keep you alive. It kept our ancestors alive when there were real predators that were daily dangers. Now the problem is that the amygdala can't tell the difference between the lion outside your cave and a difficult conversation you're dreading tomorrow. So to your amygdala, a scary thought is a scary threat, full stop. So when you start worrying, your brain's not malfunctioning, it's just trying to protect you. It's rehearsing the threat, it's looking for a way out. But the trouble is that modern threats don't work that way. You can't outrun an awkward email, and rehearsing the threat 1,000 times just exhausts you and keeps you in the loop. So the important thing to understand is worrying isn't a character flaw, it's biology, but it's biology that if we know how, we can work with it. So let me tell you about my first trip through India on a motorcycle. I was in my late 20s. I'd been traveling for many years at this point, and I was moving through the world, and I was really trying to figure out who I was and what life was really about. And it's somewhere along the line I got this idea that I wanted to get a motorcycle and I wanted to ride my way through India. Not take a bus, not take a tour, but a motorcycle. And I thought I was reasonably adaptive by then. But I can promise you, I wasn't prepared for India. Everything that could go wrong went wrong. Routes that didn't exist on the map, breakdowns in towns where nobody spoke English, monsoon rains that turned roads into rivers, plans even that dissolved the moment that I made them. And I remember at one point, somewhere in the Himalayas, I was sitting at the side of the road, my bike wasn't starting, because when you're at that higher altitude, you get all sorts of problems with your motorcycle. And I had no idea where the nearest town was, and I was running through every possible worst case scenario in my mind. And then something in me just stopped, because I realized viscerally in that moment that the worrying was not adding anything. The bike was still not starting. The road was still gone. My catastrophizing wasn't solving any of it. I was just adding suffering on top of what was already a bit of a scary and a difficult situation. I think that was one of the first times I really understood the difference between what I could control and what I couldn't, and how much energy I was pouring into the wrong column, which was the I can't control this. And this brings me to the framework that I want to give you, the two-list method, right? That's what I call it. And it's almost embarrassingly simple, but simple doesn't mean easy, and it doesn't mean it doesn't work. So here's what you do. When you notice you're in a worry spiral, you grab a piece of paper or your phone, but ideally a piece of paper. Doesn't matter too much. And you draw two columns. Column 1, what can I control? Column 2, what can't I control? And then you take the thing you're worrying about and you start sorting honestly what belongs in which column. All right? Can you control whether another person changes their behavior? No. Column 2. Can you control how you respond to that person? Yes. Column 1. Can you control the economy? What's on the news? What your neighbor thinks of you? Column 2, column 2, column 2. Can you control whether you show up today? How you speak to yourself? What actions you take? Column 1. So the goal isn't that we ignore column 2, but it's that we stop spending our mental energy there. Because here's the real cost of worrying about things that you can't control. It doesn't just steal your peace, it steals the attention and the energy that you need for the things you actually can do something about. So awareness of a problem is not the same as working on it. Awareness plus action is working on it. Awareness plus anxious, repetitive thinking, that, my friend, is just suffering. All right, now the Dalai Lama. I have been lucky to have some extraordinary experiences in my life, all right? But the time that I spent in proximity to the Dalai Lama's teachings is something I return to, honestly, almost every week. So, I used to go up into the north of India, into a place called Dharamsala, where a lot of Tibetan people are, and I would go there and often be able to be there with the Dalai Lama while he was teaching. And there's this teaching that's so simple that you almost want to dismiss it, but I've found the simplest things in life are often the most radical. And it's this: if you can do something about it, why worry? And if you can't do anything about it, why worry? I remember the first time I really sat with that, because my initial response was, well, that's clever, but surely it can't be that simple. Except it actually is. So think about it. If you can do something about a situation, then the energy you need is not worry, it's action. And worrying is actually getting in the way of the action. And if you genuinely can't do anything about it, if it's truly outside of your control, then worry is just pain you're choosing to stay in. It doesn't prepare you, it doesn't protect you, it just hurts. Now that's not spiritual bypassing. That's not pretending that problems don't exist. It's a very clear-eyed look at where your energy actually belongs. Okay, so I want to give you something practical you can use today. Not just concepts, a 3-step process to interrupt the worry cycle when it's happening in real time. Step number 1, name it. So the moment you notice you're in a worry loop, say it out loud or in your head. I'm worrying right now, not judgment, just recognition. So naming activates your prefrontal cortex. So that's the thinking brain. And it starts to take power away from the amygdala. This is not a small thing. The act of labeling an emotional state literally, scientifically reduces its intensity. There's a lot of neuroscience behind this, but you don't need the neuroscience, just try it. All right, step 2, run the to-list check. So right there in that moment, ask yourself, is this something I can actually do something about right now? If it's yes, do the thing. Take the action, however small. If no, move to step 3. And then step 3 is return to the body. So this is where meditation becomes not just a nice practice, but a genuinely practical tool. Because when we're caught in worry, we're almost entirely in our heads. We're running future scenarios, we're replaying past moments, we're completely disconnected from the present. So the body is always in the present. So you bring your attention back to your breath, to the physical sensation of your feet on the floor, to the temperature of the air. This is not bypassing the problem. This is interrupting the loop long enough to get out of the survival response and back into clarity. 3 breaths. That's often enough to shift the state. So I want to say something about meditation here, because I know that sometimes it can get a lot of eye rolls, and I used to eye roll. When I first started meditating, I was deeply skeptical. I was also deeply unhappy at 19, right? So meditation wasn't my first instinct, but it was what actually worked. I call it my superpower. What meditation does, and I mean real consistent practice, is build the mental muscle that lets you notice when you're in a loop and choose to step out of it. Not by suppressing worry, not by forcing positivity, by training a different kind of attention. Even 10 minutes a day, that's where I started. And it's where I see the shift happen for most people I work with. Speaking of which, I've spent a lot of years trying to understand what actually makes people happy. Not the surface version, not the kind that depends on everything going right. The kind that's genuinely available to you, even when things are hard. And I've put what I've learned into something I've called the happiness quiz. It takes about 2 minutes, 3 minutes. It gives you a personalized PDF where you can look at where you actually are right now in terms of the foundational things that drive happiness and well-being, including, by the way, your relationship with worry and control. So the link's in the description, intendtobehappy.com, and it's completely free. A lot of people find it surprisingly revealing, so go and do it. All right, let me land this. Worrying's not your enemy. It's your brain trying to take care of you. But most of the time, it's working from an outdated map, one that treats uncertainty as danger and thinking as action. So the two-list method gives you the map, the 3-step process gives you the off-ramp, and the practice of returning to the present, to your breath, to what's actually real and actually possible, that's what builds the habit over time. So you're not going to stop having thoughts about things you can't control. That's not the goal. The goal is to stop letting those things run the show. India, by the way, the bike eventually started. It's something to do with the air thing. I don't know, it was too complicated for me. But in the heights of altitude, not only does your body struggle, but actually devices struggle as well. Most of the things that I worried about then never happened. And the things that I did, I handled them same as I always had. And I tell you, it's changed the way I live my life. I am always the person that you want in a crisis because I do not get frazzled. I just gently and slowly work my way through things because I don't waste my time worrying. And I want you to know that if I can handle it, you can too. I'm no genius. I've just learned some skills, and those skills I put into practice, and they've changed my life. If this was useful, subscribe. I put out new content every week. It's focused on practical approaches to happiness, mental well-being, and living with a bit more clarity. And if you want to go deeper, then come and do some work with me. As always, be kind. Take care. Go gently in the world.